The movie begins in a humble apartment building, where a loving family resides. The father, Nandan, is a hardworking man trying to make ends meet, while his wife Latha supports him with her unwavering love. They are parents to a young son named Ayush, who brings joy to their lives during their financial struggles. Despite their love for each other, Nandan and Latha often argue over their impoverished lifestyle, longing to start their own business, but unable to accumulate enough capital. Nandan finds it challenging to even pay the rent for their apartment and frequently has to plead with their landlord for more time. Despite the difficulties they face, their love and dreams keep their spirits high. Nandan worked as a newspaper printer, earning a low salary that never seemed to increase, despite his hard work and dedication to the job. His demanding boss would often require him to work overtime, yet refused to pay him fairly for the extra hours. Nandan's tireless work schedule left him with limited time to spend with his loved ones. But when he was able to finish early, he made the most of it by treating his family to a meal at their beloved Chinese restaurant, where they savored the delicious fried rice. Despite the difficulties he faced at work, Nandan was grateful for these moments spent with his wife and son. One evening, as Nandan was making his way home from work, he stumbled upon a mysterious red suitcase sitting in front of an alley. The suitcase appeared different from the surrounding debris, sparking his curiosity. He couldn't resist the urge to take a look inside, and to his surprise, he found it overflowing with stacks of cash. Overcome with fear and uncertainty, Nandan immediately fled the scene, hiding in case the rightful owner was nearby. As time passed and no one appeared, he mustered up the courage to return to the suitcase. He called out, hoping to find the owner, but there was no response. With a mixture of apprehension and hope, Nandan decided to take the suitcase with him back to his home. Carrying the suitcase, which was missing one wheel and therefore cumbersome to pull, Nandan was filled with fear and anxiety. He declined offers of help, including a ride from a passing taxi driver, out of fear of attracting attention. It wasn't until the sound of a police siren approached that he finally agreed to the ride. During the journey, the driver made small talk, asking about the heavy suitcase Nandan was carrying. Nandan, fearing the driver suspected what was inside, feigned a call to a gangster, claiming that the suitcase was safe. When they finally arrived near Nandan's apartment, he asked the driver to drop him off at a distance. He waited until the driver had left before dragging the suitcase to his apartment and hiding it amongst a pile of belongings outside. He didn't want to involve Latha in the matter, afraid she would think he had obtained the money in an unethical manner. Nandan's mind was plagued with worry and unease about the unexpected discovery of the money. The weight of responsibility for the hefty sum made it difficult for him to sleep peacefully. As a solution, he carefully and secretly transferred the money to his neighbor's apartment, who happened to be away, and had left the keys in Nandan's trust. Nandan arose early the next day, eager to verify the contents of the mysterious red suitcase he had stumbled upon the night before. Upon examination, he was shocked to discover that the suitcase was filled with a staggering 100 million rupees in real currency. Unbeknownst to Nandan, the money belonged to a powerful criminal organization led by an official named Patil. On the night of Nandan's discovery, Patil had dispatched his minions to deliver the funds to a trusted associate. Unfortunately, the transaction was interrupted by a rival gang, led by the notorious Bala. As the sounds of sirens filled the air, the shootout between Patil and Bala's gangs came to a sudden halt. In their haste to escape, Bala's men hid the red suitcase filled with money amongst the piles of junk in the alley, not realizing that one of its wheels had been knocked off in the chaos. Little did they know, Nandan would stumble upon the suitcase on his way home from work that night. Unaware of its true contents, he took the suitcase with him, not realizing the danger that was about to unfold. Nandan's newfound wealth brought him joy, but it was short-lived when he learned about the recent shootout on the news. He feared that the money he had come across was connected to the gang activity, putting him in grave danger if the gangsters were to find out. Nandan realized that the hard-earned riches he had been dreaming of all these years had come at a great cost. As time passed, the two gangsters grew more and more determined to locate the elusive suitcase. Patil, one of the gangsters, resorted to drastic measures, using his cunning to blackmail Detective Kalte into aiding in the search. Kalte was no ordinary policeman, known throughout the city for his exceptional ability to track down even the most elusive of criminals. With the help of two of his trusted colleagues, Kalte set out to gather information about the suitcase. He began his investigation at a bookstore that had once been the site of a notorious crime. Despite the danger, he was determined to solve the mystery and retrieve the sought-after item. As the night grew darker, Nandan made his way home, his thoughts consumed by the events of the day. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a group of police officers investigating the aftermath of a recent shootout. Curiosity getting the better of him, Nandan approached the scene and was relieved to discover that the CCTV footage had been compromised. Without any concrete evidence to implicate him, Nandan felt a sense of relief wash over him. He knew that neither the police nor the gangsters would be able to connect him to the theft of the valuable suitcase. This meant that he could use the stolen money without fear of retribution. With newfound wealth at his disposal, Nandan indulged in the finer things in life, taking his family on a holiday filled with good food and enjoyable experiences. He used part of the stolen money to settle his mounting debts, including overdue rent payments on his apartment, and cleverly bribed his coworkers to work extra shifts in his place. Despite his actions driven by self-interest, Nandan was not without compassion. He regularly gave back to the community, showing generosity to those in need. This included the hard-working caretaker of his apartment building and the less fortunate families in the neighborhood. By spreading joy and kindness, Nandan hoped to alleviate some of the hardships faced by those around him. One sunny day, Nandan and his family were leisurely strolling through a busy mall when Ayush, Nandan's son, excitedly begged his parents to take him to see a superhero movie in the theater. Though Nandan was happy to indulge his son's request, Latha, Nandan's wife, had grown suspicious of her husband's recent spending spree. She didn't want to add to the family's expenses by going to the movies, but Nandan was able to convince her to give in to Ayush's wishes. As the movie began to unfold on the big screen, Latha leaned over to whisper in Nandan's ear. She reminded him that the caretaker was scheduled to come by the apartment to clean and that she had given him their neighbor's keys. Though Nandan was caught off guard by the news, he tried to enjoy the movie with his family. Upon hearing the news, Nandan was struck by fear. He quickly excused himself, feigning a call from work, and rushed home in a taxi, hoping to beat the caretaker to his neighbor's apartment. When he arrived, he was relieved to find that the caretaker had not discovered the hidden suitcase. In a bid to keep the valuable stash a secret, Nandan offered the caretaker a sum of money and implored him to leave. This close call prompted Nandan to realize that he couldn't keep the money in his neighbor's apartment indefinitely. He devised a plan to divide the funds into multiple plastic bags, which he then concealed in various locations around his home and workplace. Despite taking these precautions, Nandan still felt uneasy about the hidden fortune. The only way to ensure his safety was to spend all the money, but doing so would surely raise Latha's suspicion. As Kalte sat in front of the newly repaired CCTV screen, he eagerly scanned through the footage from the night of the shootout. It didn't take him long to spot Nandan, carrying a suspicious suitcase, climbing into an auto rickshaw. Determined to track Nandan down, Kalte sought out the driver of the rickshaw. The driver shared his own suspicions of Nandan's strange behavior that night, and agreed to take Kalte to the spot where he had dropped Nandan off. But when they arrived, Nandan was nowhere to be found. Undeterred, Kalte decided to take a different approach. He enlisted the help of a talented painter to sketch Nandan's face based on the driver's description. Unfortunately, the driver struggled to remember Nandan's appearance and instead provided a description of the famous Indian actor, Shahrukh Khan. In his frustration, Kalte impulsively lashed out and slapped the driver. But to his surprise, the sudden action jogged the driver's memory. The driver suddenly remembered that Nandan had dropped his credit card the night of the ride. He also recalled Nandan's full name and the bank information associated with the card. With this newfound information, Kalte sprang into action. He scoured nearby branches of the bank, determined to find any information that could lead him to Nandan. As Nandan arrived at the bank, he decided to deposit a portion of his ill-gotten money. While counting his cash, the curious Nandan couldn't help but ask the cashier where he could purchase a money-counting machine. With 2 large sacks of cash waiting for him at home, Nandan envisioned the machine as a more efficient way to keep track of his wealth. However, the cashier and those around him thought Nandan was making a joke and chuckled at his words. Little did they know, Nandan's seemingly absurd request was all too real. The cashier politely asked Nandan to hold on for a moment while he stepped away to speak with a colleague. Nandan obediently took a seat, waiting for the cashier to return. But as the cashier and his friend chatted and cast occasional glances in his direction, Nandan became increasingly nervous. He feared that he had somehow aroused suspicion. However, Nandan's worries were unfounded. The cashier and his friend were not looking at him, but rather at the man standing behind him. Nandan was now consumed by fear, and he made the hasty decision to flee the bank. In his panicked state, he failed to notice a truck barreling down the road as he crossed. Just as disaster seemed inevitable, the truck swerved at the last moment, avoiding Nandan and sending him crashing to the ground, unconscious from the shock. When Nandan came to, he found himself back inside the bank, surrounded by security personnel and staff. After being handed the receipt for his deposit, he quickly made his escape. The following day, Kalte arrived at the bank to continue his investigation. At that time, he had the opportunity to speak with the staff who had encountered Nandan the previous day. The staff reported to Kalte that Nandan had acted strangely, and even provided him with the address of Nandan's residence. Later in the evening, Nandan returned home from work to find Latha waiting for him, with the suitcase in her possession. She was beyond angry and accused Nandan of obtaining the money through criminal means. Nandan firmly told her to quiet down and then explained the situation. The money belonged to wealthy individuals and wouldn't be missed by them. He saw this as an opportunity for he and Latha to better their lives, by using the money to fulfill their dreams and even start their own business. However, the argument between Nandan and Latha didn't end there. Latha still maintained that the money should be returned to its rightful owner or handed over to the authorities. Just as the argument was reaching a fever pitch, there was a sudden crash from their apartment's front door. When they went to investigate, they were met with the sight of Kalte, his face contorted with anger and a gun pointed straight at them. Demanding the return of the money, Nandan reluctantly handed over the suitcase and all the cash they had stored in their home. But that was not all. Nandan also led Kalte to his place of work, where he had hidden some additional bundles of cash. Little did they know, Bala and his men were closely monitoring their every move. As Nandan arrived at his workplace with Kalte, he was given the task of retrieving money from a hidden room, while Kalte waited outside. But when Nandan entered the room, he was surprised to find his boss waiting for him, who demanded that he sleep with him and listen to his problems. Meanwhile, Bala's men sprang into action, attacking Kalte outside. Despite putting up a fight and managing to kill some attackers, Kalte realized he wasn't safe and fled to his hideout with the money, intending to keep it for himself. Unfortunately for him, Bala's men discovered the hideout's location from one of Kalte's associates and quickly launched an attack on the hideout. After finally obtaining the remaining funds from his workplace, Nandan was on his way out when Kalte called him to bring the money to his hideout. Nandan arrived with the cash, only to have Kalte point a gun at him. It was clear that Kalte, the corrupt detective, had intended to betray Nandan all along. Luckily, just as Kalte was about to pull the trigger, Bala and his men, along with Patil's gang, stormed the hideout, resulting in a deadly shootout. While bullets flew, Nandan took cover under a table to avoid getting hit. When the smoke cleared, everyone in the hideout, except for Nandan, lay dead. After the chaos settled, Nandan received a call from Latha, who was worried about their dangerous lifestyle and the tainted money. Nandan shared her sentiment and wished to return to a life of safety and tranquility. However, as he looked down, he saw the infamous red suitcase on the ground. Once again, he inquired about its owner, but receiving no response, he decided to take it with him. Despite never learning from his past, Nandan's actions made him wealthy once again. As the movie concludes, Patil's political career comes to an end, and he returns to his village. However, unbeknownst to him, Bala's remaining men trailed him to the village, disguising themselves as farmers. By the time Patil realizes the truth, it is too late. The moral that can be learned from this movie is, never use ill-gotten gains, especially those obtained through corruption.